guys, it's Bump coming at you with a third part of the D&D odd story, Summoning Gods. Now, last time we got into why this campaign was called Summoning Gods because they summoned Rebecca, and our heroes worshipped at her feet and learned more about how to become better people in the process. But lastly, they, after receiving all their equipment and after rocking out to a pretty awesome song, they set off back to get to Dakota Fields, and they did eventually reach Dakota Fields ahead of schedule, actually. And when they finally reached in, Orkana told the group that he was going to take care of some official business with the artifacts he was bringing over, and that they could chill out for a couple days, and it would be 3 days before they'd be leaving to go back. And the group's kind of like, cool, just kind of unanimously. And they all go off to do their own things. I'm pretty sure Ben, he found like an old, like abandoned weapon shop that like had been condemned and found like a secret area in there, and he found a bunch of serrated weapons, which was pretty cool, especially considering his combat orientation. Other than that, not a lot happened. We did get to see a little bit of the romance between Nia and Link, actually. Link and Nia played a little bit of a song at a local tavern, and they got the attention of some extraplanar beings, like outsiders. And eventually they got the attention of a god. Now, in my universe we were playing in, they got the attention of the Bardic god, Makes quite a lot of sense. So the Bardic god comes down, and he's approving of their song, and he's joining in, he's jamming out with them. And this is Nia's lifetime goal. This would be equivalent for Christians to see Jesus Christ come down and talk to his followers. That's just how kind of awesome this moment was for Nia, and she was just ecstatic. And Link, on the other hand, he left after he left them to talk for a while, and the god eventually ascended because he's a god. Why would he waste his time with mortals more than a couple seconds? So Link goes off in his own direction, and he looks into a matter with Satara, and apparently Satara has found out that little necklace that they found a couple episodes ago with that whole thing with the goblins and everything. Yeah, that means something. They learned that could be something like a serious issue. So they rallied each other up. It was Satara, Lash, Ben, and Link. They all decided, okay, we gotta take care of this. They set off outside of town, and they met up at a little place, and they heard some kind of rumor that there was a kobold/goblin village, over the mountains. So they decided, hey, we should go to over the mountain to see what's up. And they did. Along the way, they were attacked by a red dragon, which later they found out was connected to the Dokapon dragons, which they're not all. It's a human group. It's a human firebender group, but there's a couple dragons, here and there that joined the group because they got the name Dokapon dragons for a reason. So the group runs into this baby dragon as they were walking to go see the village. They get attacked. Ben, arrows were flung. They were learning new combat tactics at this point. And Satara, and you're gonna laugh so much, or you're gonna think it's so cheesy when you hear it. When Satara hit the ground, his eyes began to glow, and a vortex of wind began to form around him, and he was bending the wind element like it was second nature to him. And it was at that moment that Satara realized that he was the Avatar. And he knew about the Avatar, and the Avatar has been gone for, I guess at that time, a good 17, 18, 19 years, and they didn't know who the new Avatar was. This land is chaos compared to how the old Avatar had, a tight ran ship. But at the same time, they didn't know who, chaos broke out, war broke out, and they couldn't figure out who the next Avatar was. Well, now he has revealed himself as General Satara. So Satara has given this new title, and it's a pretty big moment for them all, because they all realize that he is the Avatar, and these people, Link knows who the Avatar is. He's studied enough history books to know, Ben, King of the Orcs, that as funny as that little title is, even though he's not a king, he knows who he is, because he knows history. And Lash knows who he is, he knows history. It's a big moment, and you might be saying, I just did that to give him something to be, cool about. Well, the thing is, I rolled on a percentile to see whether he would be or not, and he rolled a 93. So, I'd rolled this number behind everyone's back. No one saw it. It was only me. And I was like, okay, he's the Avatar. And then I had to think about how to introduce it into that story, and that moment was an intense enough battle where I could show that he was the Avatar, and it, not seem awkward or, just shoved in there. That it was a natural, that he had to reach deep within himself to be able to pull it out in the last second. That's what it was supposed to be all about. Now, after that big moment of realizing he was the Avatar, they continued on, and they found the village. And it was a big wooden village with a wall, and they could see it must have been at least a population of 5,000, comprised of kobolds and goblins. And 5,000 doesn't really sound all that much, but 5,000 kobolds and goblins all rushing down a village can destroy it effectively. Even though Dakota Field is more of a very large town, their military isn't something that's overwhelming, to say the least. So Dakota Fields is almost completely defenseless against this, if this war party were to attack. So the guys look around at each other, and they're wondering what they should do. And Link, because he's such a great leader, decides that he is going to take an arrow, and he is going to dip it in oil, and then he's going to light it on fire, and then he's going to send arrows to the different corners of this little fort. Well, they had to get closer, so they got close enough where it was in range, and he wasn't really aiming for anything in particular. He just wanted it to land in there somewhere. And they did it, and they ran away, and they saw burning and fire all over the place. And they ran home like nothing ever happened. They get in late, and it goes to the very next day. And the very next day, they are approached by they heard screaming out in the streets. And it was Link and Nia in a bar. And Link ran out, and he saw that an old man huffing and puffing near the street like he had been running. And they questioned him, and he just yelled out, "They got my daughter, they got my daughter, they got my daughter." So the group's like, oh no, we should go save, his daughter. And it was a human look. Sorry about that. He was a human male, so, they asked what race. They were paranoid about races right now. So they asked what race. I said, he's human. He looks like he's a farmer. He's been here. It looks like he's lived here for centuries, Well, not centuries, but it looks like he's been well established here. So like, okay, and they run after him, and they're running as fast as they can, and they're trying to catch up to him. They finally do to the guys that had kidnapped them, and they had to run. They eventually assembled their little group, and they ran out of town, and they ran to their hideout. And that's when things took a turn for a little bit more dark. They enter the cave, and they look around, and there's just something not right. Something doesn't sit well with them, and they feel this weird lump in their stomachs. And the first room that they entered, after the main room, there was two guys, two robed figures, and they both got into like a crouching stance, and like they're ready to fight these people. And I'm pretty sure Lash ran in first, and it was so bizarre. One of them like just put his hands out and stopped Lash in his track, and then just made a motion like he was flinging him against the wall, and just like that, Lash was flung up against the wall and bashed his head, and blood was gushing out. And it took them a second to realize, but whatever these guys are doing, they're using blood to do it. And they started using their blood, like the enemy started using the party's blood against them and using it to attack them and strangle them. At one point, Ben crits one of the robe figures, and then that robe figure uses his own blood in bloodbending to attack and retaliate. And it got really, really gruesome and dark for that little part. But they eventually overcame them, and Satara found something pretty unusual about one of them. He was searching the bodies, and on the female one, he found a betrothal necklace that the Water Tribesmen have, or women rather, that the Water Tribesmen gave to their women to be betrothed. So, he couldn't imagine that, it was a big shocker to him that there were waterbenders out there who were doing weird things like this. But they eventually pressed on, and they went to the next room. And in the next room, they saw something that kind of shocked them. They saw two women. One was a human that had a knife in her hand. The other was a half-orc female that had a axe in her hand. And each one pointed to the other and said, "Kill that one. She's a monster," or no, she's the monster. And the guys kind of took sides at that point. It was a very confusing situation for them, but eventually there was a third party involved where there were 3 more road figures that were fighting them at the same time, and I think eventually the half-orc was killed, all the road members were killed, and the human female was still alive. And they were like, "Well, are you the daughter of such and such?" And she's like, "Yes, I am." And they're like, "Okay, I guess we saved her." They didn't think to ask any questions other than that, because usually that's as far as it goes. And then they stepped outside for the next part of their journey. Running a little bit low on time here, so I'm just going to cut it off before we hit the next good part. Now, if you like this part, like, comment, tell me what you liked. If you didn't like this part, dislike, comment, tell me what you didn't like and how I can get better. Until next time, this has been Ozmic Bump, signing off.